بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وابتلوا اليتامى حتى إذا بلغوا النكاح فإن آنستم منهم رشدا فادفعوا إليهم أموالهم ولا تأكلوها إسرافا وبدارا أن يكبروا ومن كان غنيا فليستعفف ومن كان فقيرا فليأكل بالمعروف فإذا دفعتم إليهم أموالهم فأشهدوا عليهم وكفى بالله حسيبا. And test the orphans until they reach the age of marriage. Then if you find in them maturity of intellect, make over to them their property and consume it not extravagantly and hastily against their growing up. And whoever is rich, let him abstain, and whoever is poor, let him consume reasonably. And when you make over to them their property, call witnesses in their presence. And Allah is enough as a reckoner. Although this is in terms of orphans. But this verse of the Holy Quran deals with an important concept, although it talks about it in terms of marriage, but also other things. And that concept is, you could translate that as, and test them until then if you find in them mental capacity. And this has been used some 8 or 9 times in the Holy Quran. Mental capacity. You see, this is interesting, that whereas other laws say you can marry at 16 or 18 or 21 or whatever, the Quran doesn't say that. The Holy Quran talks about mental capacity. It may be that someone has the mental capacity to deal with property and income and marriage and all the responsibility when they're 16. Someone else may not have that capacity even when they're 21 or 24. So this arbitrary limit, you can marry when you're 21. But the Holy Quran says, and test them for maturity, for mental capacity. And the interesting thing is that this concept has become a part and parcel of all legal systems. Whether you're young or old, for example, when parents are old, there are tests for their mental capacity. Are they capable of making financial decisions so that they don't get defrauded out of their savings, etc.? But there was something called the Gillick test. And I want to read this out to you. It is from the Times of Saturday, the 10th of October. And it's in relation to a person who is suing a National Health Trust for negligence. So she's not suing them. She has asked for a judicial review. We won't go into what a judicial review is, but basically it's going to court. Now let me read this. And the heading is, can life-changing decisions be left to children? And the article is, when Victoria Gillick, a Roman Catholic mother of Kent, came across a government circular advocating under 16s be prescribed contraception without parental consent, she was outraged. In 1983, her legal battle to stop doctors encouraging children to be promiscuous and landed in the High Court. Mrs. Gillick lost, but her name endures. Now, isn't it interesting? Isn't this interesting? That parents no longer have any right to make any decision or even guide their children. Their only responsibility in life appears to be to provide free board and lodging for the children so that the state doesn't have to pay for it. Isn't it odd that when talking about Islam, we are told there is no freedom in Islam? It says do this, do that, do something else or don't do something else. But here, minors, underage children are being told you can go to your doctor. Now, let's look at this scenario. If a Muslim were to marry a girl who's 14 or 15 in this country or anywhere in the world, all hell breaks loose. Muslims force minors to marry. But according to the law of this country, it is okay for those same minors that you shouldn't be marrying to have sexual intercourse with them. Then the government encourages them. So why shouldn't I have any rights in this matter? There was a case where 2 minors were involved and the girl became pregnant. And her parents were very angry, and they basically said, well, we have no room for you. Now, I was sort of personally involved in this case. And the boy's parents were very nice. And they said, well, she can come and live with us and so on and so forth. And the local authority insisted on a separate room being constructed for the girl, because she was not allowed to live in the same room as the boy because they were both under 16. What is the point of having this law and then sending a secret memo? Remember, it was a secret memo to doctors saying if those 2 children had gone to their GP and asked for contraception, the GP would have said, yeah, that's fine. Don't worry about it. I won't tell your parents what you're doing. So, British government, I ask you, please tell us, what is the purpose of having parents apart from providing free board and lodging so that the state doesn't have to do it? If those same people who were under 16 had said we want to marry, local authority would have taken them into care. There would have been conferences and meetings and mental assessments and checking for mental capacity, and the barristers and solicitors and God knows who else would have got involved. Why? Because they want to marry. They don't want to have sexual intercourse outside marriage. That would be illegal. But it's perfectly fine for them to go to their GP and ask for contraception and have sexual intercourse without, or get the contraception without their parents' consent or knowledge. People talk about bank of mom and dad. No, it's not bank, because the bank can refuse to give you money. But whatever you do, you are just supposed to keep on providing. The guy has 6 kids from 6 different girls, and he's supposed to provide maintenance. So you're supposed to keep paying for that. Why? Why should I pay for something for which, why should I take financial responsibility for something for which I had no contribution to the decision that was taken? And what this has resulted in is, the article carries on about that. And this has become a legal concept. I mean, what's called Gillick competency, it's a legal concept, and it's quoted in the courts and so on. But the Quran spoke about this 1500 years ago. Let's carry on. Gillick competency became the legal test honed by precedent to decide whether minors can can agree to medical procedures, a child must not only have the ability to understand the nature of the proposed treatment, but a full understanding of the consequences of that treatment, while possessing the necessary experience of life to make a decision. This week, the Gillick test was central to a judicial review launched by Kiara Bell against the Tavistock and Portman National Health Service Foundation Trust's GID, Gender Identity Development Service clinic. As a girl, Ms. Bell, now 23, was a tomboy. As a distressed teen, she read online trans forums, which led her to believe that she was really a boy. GIDS, she said, fueled that fantasy, prescribing puberty-blocking drugs after just 3 one-hour appointments, and then male hormone therapy. Later, she had a double mastectomy. Now she has detransitioned. Which means that from girl she became a boy. Now she wants to go back to her natural state. Now she has detransitioned to live as a woman, but is left with an irreversibly deep voice, facial hair, and impaired sexual function. I made a brash decision as a teenager trying to find confidence and happiness, she said, except now the rest of my life will be negatively affected. The question before the High Court is whether Kiera or any young person has the capacity to consent to puberty blockers. And it's not just about this. No parents are not mentioned. No discussion with the family is mentioned. With every piece of legislation, Western governments are destroying the family, whereas Islam concentrates on making families strong and building the family. Listen to these figures. Out of 161 young people referred by GIDS for such drugs in 2019 to 2020, half were under 16. The law says they don't have the capacity to marry, but they have a capacity to decide that they can change their gender. Half are under 16, a quarter were under 14. What would the police do to a person who had sexual intercourse with a 14-year-old girl? But she can decide to change her gender. But it goes further. 3 people who wanted to change their gender were under 10. A 10-year boy or girl, do they have the mental capacity to decide that they want to undergo these terrible treatments and operations? And you notice the fact that parents are not mentioned anywhere. We are told Islam. What has this government done? It's restricted the parents' freedom. And now what is the government going to do about those people who want to detransition? And increasing numbers who change their gender want to detransition. It is a fairy tale, said Kiera Bell's QC, Jeremy Hyam, that a child could have Gillick competency to take such drugs. Isn't it odd? A 10-year-old can't enter into a contract. They can't get a mortgage. They can't get HP. And there's a list of other 100 things. But without their parents' knowledge, they can make a decision to change their gender. The boy to become girl and the girl to become a boy. This girl who's going for the JR, she says, she was just a teenager. So why was she treated as an adult? This is why you have parents. This is why you have parents who love their children, who have their children's interest at heart, and who want to guide them to the right path. Do social services actually care for these children? To them, it's just a job. Do the National Health Foundation trusts care about the welfare of these children? No, to them, it's just a job. This teenager went to 3 sessions, and then they said, yeah, that's fine. Take these drugs. They'll stop you from having periods and etc. They allowed her to have her breasts removed. A judicial review demands that under 18s be prescribed puberty blockers only by a court order. With 16 to 18-year-olds, this seems a leap, but the High Court must decide if any under 16 can have Gillick competency over their own sterilization and sexual dysfunction. The fallout from this case, this judicial review, from an unexamined global rise in young women transitioning, 75% of Tavistock referrals are female, is a growing number of detransitioners. And having made a decision when they were children and they didn't have the mental capacity to take such a momentous decision, how does a 13-year-old appreciate what the consequences of these operations and drugs are when she is 50 or 60 or 40 or even 23? There's a growing number of detransitioners like Ms. Bell. We're told that the British, the Western governments are giving these people freedom. This is the same argument they use in America, where it is said, don't let everyone have Kalashnikovs, submachine guns. Oh, people should have freedom. But freedom is a double-edged sword. You give one person the freedom to have a Kalashnikov, and you take away someone else's freedom to live a healthy and long and happy life with his family. And the most appalling thing is that there is no mention of the parents of these children in this article, as if they don't exist. So, let me propose something radical. A woman becomes pregnant, goes into the hospital, has a baby. Let Mr. Boris Johnson take that baby away. And let someone else have sleepless nights. And let someone else spend money on their upbringing, on their food and clothing and nappies and Nintendos and Switches and everything else. By the time someone becomes 21 and becomes independent, It has cost the parents £1 million. Let Mr. Boris Johnson spend £1 million per child. I know what Mr. Boris Johnson will do. After the first delivery, a law will be passed that the woman should be sterilized so that she can't have any more babies, because we can't afford to house them and feed them and so on. Who is left to deal with the consequences of these appalling laws? The children themselves? Yes, agreed. But what about the parents? Are they not affected by their daughter's situation? Weren't they affected by her situation when she decided to have this operation? People say, why was God's guidance needed? This is why. Since humans have started making laws, they've started creating a mess, as they did before, and as they will continue to do so, unless laws are governed by morality, unless medicine is governed by morality, unless science is governed by morality. We will continue to have immoral decisions like bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and prescriptions for puberty blockers for 10-year-old children. It is about time that morality was reinstituted into lawmaking. Barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'anil azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa zikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawadun karimun malikun barrufur rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma ansur man nasara dina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam waj'alna minhu. Allahumma khzul man khazala dina Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa la taj'alna minhu. Ibadallah rahmakumullah, inna Allaha ya'muru bil adli wal ihsani wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'izukum la'allakum tadhakkarun. Uzkurullaha yazkurkum wad'uhu yastajib lakum wa la zikrullahi akbar wallahu ya'lamu ma tasna'un.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. Qamat as-salah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah.
Allahu Akbar. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. Allahumma anta salam. Tabarak. This is the end of our Friday service. Thank you for joining us. I just want to announce that we probably won't have a broadcast on Sunday. It's looking unlikely at the moment. So our next broadcast will be on Monday, 7 p.m. UK time in Urdu and 7:30 p.m. UK time in English. With the prayer that until we meet again, may Allah keep all of you safe and sound and free from harm. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz, goodbye.